All right. Well, viewers are not quite here. So I'll give everyone like 5 minutes to arrive. But in the meantime, for those of you who are with us, welcome, welcome. I am Chef Alexis Butters, aka Chef Christina Alexis. I work for a company here in the Bay Area called the Pleasure Principle Supperclub and Dining Events. And sorry about that, I should have muted my phone. But yes, today we are doing one of my favorite dishes. It is a Polenta Bar with kind of all the fixins as was advertised. And I couldn't be more excited. This is a dish that a lot of my clients seem to really like. Actually, its inception started when a really good friend of mine, Morgan Walker, is a really wonderful woman that used to live here in Oakland. She and her family now live in Chicago. But she tried my polenta at an event series that my twin sister and I were hosting called Hella Black Brunch here in Oakland. And she just loved my polenta so much. She was like, look, can you cater my baby shower and just make that polenta of yours? And so I was like, absolutely. But it, kind of has to be a little bit more special than just polenta. Even though on its own, polenta is a perfectly acceptable comfort food. And hi, Jessica. and I actually love it. I think it's a really great blank canvas, for chefs to kind of flex on and paint on. And because it tends to kind of be so plain, it is an opportunity for us to kind of show off as chefs based on the garnishes and kind of accoutrements. So with that in mind, let's just get started. Again, for everyone else joining us a little bit later, I'm Chef Alexis Butters, aka Chef Christina, of the Pleasure Principle Supperclub and Dining Events here in Oakland, California. And let's get cooking. So to be honest, because polenta takes kind of a long time to become like supple and tender, I have started that process already. And I'll bring you over to the stove. And as some of you who have been with me for other live streams know, I have a little bit of a hard time wielding this computer to like look straight at what I'm doing. But let's see if I got it. It seems like I got it here. So this has been cooking for about an hour. And it is pretty great and creamy. What I did was I boiled 4 cups of chicken stock. And in this case, I don't know if you noticed on the back burner here too, I used this bone broth and also some boxed chicken stock. It's always a great idea to kind of use everything you have in your house, never let anything go to waste. And so, yeah, I used half of the bone broth, a box of chicken stock, and I brought that up to a boil and slowly whisked in the stone ground polenta. You can also use stone ground corn grits as your polenta, but I just like the texture and kind of cornier taste of like polenta grits. I also love the bright yellow color. It just looks like a little bit more inviting. And so what I will cook for you guys, I do have my polenta bar already set up as well, which I'll show you because that's kind of what this cooking tutorial is all about. So here, and hopefully you're getting a good look, you have some shaved Brussels sprouts, some jerk chicken meatballs. Actually, in this case, I think those are beef and lamb, but they could easily be made out of ground chicken. And then I wilted some kale. And then to the side of that, there's some chicken chicharron and some fresh cilantro, some jerk sauce, some pickled cabbage, some yogurt sauce, which I love on everything, and some blistered cherry tomatoes. So what I'm going to do is get the Brussels sprouts going. And then we're going to fortify our polenta with a ton more dairy. So let's bring you over here with me. For the Brussels sprouts, I'm going to add a little bit of bacon and render it out. Make like, quote, bacon lardons. And this is, I'm not using a ton of bacon in this case because I just want like a hint of the taste. If it were like more of a dish, like if the Brussels sprouts were going to be, say, a side dish and not just a topping, then we would, you know, think more about texture and flavor for the Brussels sprouts. But because they're kind of taking a back seat to something so aggressively seasoned like the polenta, we don't need to use that much bacon. So my cast iron's been preheating. I'll keep it up a little bit. We're gonna let that render out. And help it out a little bit with some oil because all of those Brussels sprouts are gonna go in there next. And after that, we are going to fortify the polenta, like I said, with a bunch of cheese. So I'm gonna get that in there and then bring the computer over and show you guys what it looks like. Hi, Mom. Hey, Mama. My mom's here, everyone. So I've had this polenta sitting on low for about 20 minutes. So total cooking time so far has been about an hour. Like I had it at a rolling boil, brought it down to 3, just kept stirring. Then I alternately added my milk, which was 2 cups after the polenta got into that boiling half bone broth, half chicken stock mix. And then I did a stick and a half of butter that I cut up into slices and added as I whisked in. So that's just a heads up. All you're really looking for is to make sure that your consistency is super creamy, no lumps, and eventually that it's pretty tender. So I'm gonna add the last of that 2 cups of milk. And I generally refill that with some water, but right now I have this bone broth here just in case this tightens up. You wanna keep liquid around to loosen it up. But yeah, here we can toss some cheese. I am using gorgonzola. It's very creamy, very sweet. I'm also balancing it out with some of like salty tanginess of Maytag Blue. If you are not into stinky cheeses, I feel sorry for you. But also, you can use whatever cheese you want. Use mascarpone, you could use ricotta, you could use goat cheese, even cream cheese if you're really looking for something mild. And then you could add, you know, kind of Parmesan or Grana Padano or Pecorino Romano, you know, just kind of beef it up. But I love blue cheese. And in the Bay Area, we're blessed to be next to Point Reyes Farms, which has some of the best blue cheese I've ever had. But gorgonzola is perfect, very creamy, will melt right in there. And you don't need that much of it, by the way, of any blue cheese. So that's kind of another reason why I like to use it. So I'm just gonna crumble that in poco a poco, as I like to say, or as a lot of Spanish-speaking people like to say. I don't think I'm the only person that likes to say that. Give it a little whisk. And it because it's been sitting on low and is like ultra creamy, it's essentially molten lava. Any cheese I drop in there is melting right away and incorporating pretty well. I think total this will be about maybe 6 ounces of cheese, and this is quite a bit of polenta. So you could certainly add more, but I think that the flavor profile of gorgonzola, and especially that sharp Maytag, is so piquant that you won't need that much. So that's melting in, and it smells and looks beautiful. I promise you I will bring you over. And until I get my professional cameraman back on payroll, this is how we have to do it. So the bacon's rendered out pretty well. It's like half crispy on that first side, which is a great time to add whatever you're cooking it with. All right, be careful of poppage. And I want these Brussels to get pretty crispy, so I'm actually not going to overcrowd. And I didn't really talk about how I shaved them. You can shave them with a knife if you just cut them very finely. Or you can do it on a mandolin if you feel like you're, kind of advanced enough to do so. I would recommend just use a knife and go for the cut that you like. That way you don't run the risk of hurting yourself. You can also cut them in quarters and roast them. Same technique. You would start the bacon on the stove top, throw the Brussels sprouts in, and then throw them in the oven at like 375 or 400. And they would get a really beautiful kind of golden brown crust on them with that bacon flavor too, which would be absolutely delicious. So we'll get that going, get it all incorporated. And the Brussels will release some liquid, so don't worry if your pan feels dry. Let them do what they do first, and then we'll season this up and keep it moving. So, promised you guys a look at my super creamy polenta, and it is absolutely coming along. Let me show it to you. And if you guys have any questions along the way, please feel free to let me know. Yeah, I think you guys can see. It's like super uniform. It essentially should be flecks of corn, in my opinion, held together by butter and cream. And absolutely the same tenets apply to a vegan version of this. You could use, like an oat milk. I like how much thicker oat milk tends to be. And Miyoko's cultured vegan butter would be an excellent substitute. And you can certainly make a veggie stock or a vegan stock of your own and cook it in that, or buy your favorite box version. The key to it too, when the water is boiling, I might mention, to season the water. That's the only way you're really going to get like a deep layer of flavor on the polenta or inside of the polenta grit itself. Otherwise, you run the risk of over seasoning it after the fact. So right now, I'm going to taste this for seasoning. And eventually, too, I'm going to add my sister's Creme Fraiche, mostly because I had it on hand. But again, good polenta is like flecks of corn held together with butter and cream, or like just, some sort of dairy type product. So I'm going to give it a taste. But yeah, I seasoned the water and I added garlic powder, which is another one of my secrets. It really tastes like you minced down garlic and that these have been cooking all day. Oh my God. Sometimes it's just like, wow, I really made that. That is so, so, so good. But so what I am going to do to kind of amp up the complex flavor of cheese in there, because I do just taste a lot of blue cheese. It's very blue cheese forward. I'm going to grate some Pecorino Romano. And it's going to look like a lot, but obviously you can see I don't have that much left. But yeah, I think it just adds like another layer of umami, like nutty, sharp, sophisticated flavor. Whereas Gorgonzola can be a little bit like just like hit you over the head with that kind of funky flavor. So this will round it out and really just make it that much more savory. That's the thing about the vegan version of this dish. I can't really recommend that many great cheese substitutes. I know a lot of vegans typically do know. But there's absolutely no reason why you can't, use nutritional yeast or something similar to like a Parmesan cheese flavor to make a vegan version of this. If that's how you're feeling or how you live. So that was about a quarter cup of Pecorino Romano. And I mean, it is absolutely like velvet. The cool thing too about my very dairy polenta is that I could, and probably will, spread this out on a cooking sheet and let it solidify. And because there's so much fat in it, once it cools off, it'll kind of coagulate. And you can turn it into, polenta cakes, or you can fry the polenta. These are just kind of some like chef secrets that I've learned along the way that I'm happy to pass on. Hi, Red. My sister's here. The whole family's here. So yeah, that's the cool part about making polenta with so much dairy, because then it really does kind of have a lot of applications following that. So another good reason to cook with all the dairy in your fridge. And so now that my sister is here, I can't think of a better time to add her homemade creme fraiche. And I believe she made this by inoculating her whole milk with yogurt instead of buttermilk. And hopefully I have that correct. She can send a message on the live chat if that's the case. Everyone can see it. But yeah, because I didn't use heavy whipping cream, which, by the way, normally I would, but in this case I only had whole milk on hand, so I used what I have. This will really kind of add that creamy note and that tanginess that I, might have been looking for in using heavy whipping cream. It's like coating umami dairy fat that I'm looking for in this. So we are just about there. Yeah, this will go right in. And I think she gave me about a quarter cup. So yeah, let's just call it a quarter cup. You end up with a gallon, as you can see, of polenta. And that was to round it all up. And I'm happy to leave everyone the recipe following this live stream. But total liquid, it was 4 cups of broth, 2 cups of bone broth, 2 cups of chicken stock, boxed chicken stock, and then 2 cups of whole milk. In that case, if you were to use heavy whipping cream, you could sub 1 cup of whole milk, 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, or in that case, 2 cups of half and half, right? Yeah, so it's really kind of up to you how far you want to go with the creaminess of it. And with a dish like this, you want to go all the way. What's the point? You're here to make a comforting bowl of food. Why play around with it? So these are almost done. And they're almost done when you start to see some bits of it are pretty charred. Because once that dries out, it'll be nice and crispy. And I'm going to show it to you. So that is the crispy Brussels sprouts with a little bit of bacon. So while that finishes cooking, I'm going to get started building a bowl and then show you guys kind of how good it looks when all plated. All right. So I kind of just glazed over my jerk beef and lamb meatballs. I made these this morning too. If you were attending any of my other live streams, I did a workshop on my wet jerk sauce, which I always keep in my fridge, and which is at this point almost 29 months old. So it's aging pretty well. But yeah, I made a panade with breadcrumbs. So these are not gluten-free. You could certainly make a panade. I think a cool one with kind of pulverized rice and milk. That is a way I get around gluten-free, or you can use a gluten-free breadcrumb. There are a ton of brands like that. So I made the panade with breadcrumbs, milk, and I let my meat soak in my marinade for 20 minutes. And then I added all of my vegetables, my mint, cilantro, onion, and garlic. And then I just kind of mashed it all up. In this case, I didn't even need to use an egg because of the panade that I made. It really held it and bound it really well. And these are they're absolutely delicious. So if you want recipes on my jerk meatballs, feel free to drop me a line, and I'm happy to send it to you after this. All right, we are just about there with these. I'm going to turn them off and season them now. If I seasoned them earlier, we would have gotten so much more liquid out of the Brussels sprouts, which in the case of making crispy Brussels sprouts is not what you want. If you were like trying to stew this down a bit, that would be fine. But even still, the residual liquid from the Brussels sprouts themselves, without salting them in the first place, have made them like pretty soft, which is fine. You can add other things for texture if need be. So let's do this guy. I'm going to do a shallow bowl so you can see how I get down in terms of plating this up. And this will just continue to thicken and like kind of set the longer you let it cook and then the longer you let it sit. So I'm not going to go too crazy with the amount that I put in. But I do kind of want to just show you a little mixed plate. So in this case, I'm going to go for a little bit of Brussels sprouts, just like kind of down the side here. And you're not going to leave that spoon in there because it will be molten hot by the time I get back. I'm going to do a couple meatballs. And then some of these blistered cherry tomatoes, which are kind of glossed over as well when I was running down the mise en place. But all I did was get those in an oiled cast iron pan, or skillet rather. And I put them in when the pan was screaming hot, and then added salt and pepper and just let them pop a little on one side and then turned it off. And they're absolutely perfect. Because we did do a meatball, I don't see any harm in adding a little bit more of the jerk sauce on top. And it really is, it's just like, make this your own, make it beautiful, make it bright. If I were gonna do a vegetarian version of this plate, and that's the cool thing about setting up a bar, is everyone can just kind of come in, make their own plate. You can do a dairy-free vegan version of the polenta in a smaller pot and just have it next to the main one. The vegetarians seem to really, really love lots of dairy, which who can blame them. But yeah, you can just kind of mix and match, make it gorgeous, make it your own. I'm just gonna garnish this as pretty as I can. And also, this is a great pantry, like, cleaning recipe. Like I said in a lot of my other tutorials, I never waste anything. These are chicken chicharrones from chicken I broke down in my last live stream. Those are, that's bone broth made from 2 roasted chicken carcasses that I broke down earlier this week to make my braised jerk chicken dish that we've talked about. It is really about just like being able to itemize and manage what you have on hand to make something truly delicious. You don't always have to go and shop for new ingredients or spend a ton of money. And we are also kind of a, wasteful culture. So it's really cool to think about, what do I have on hand and how can I make it absolutely delicious and taste like something like brand new and not improvised. And a polenta bar is a great way to do that. So this is our finished bowl. And for risk of spilling it, I won't lean it too much, but you see how the polenta kind of has like, not quite porridge, but it's like it runs. That's what you want. And if it thickens up a bit, even better, and it will. But oh my God, is it delicious. I have to get a cherry tomato in there. Oh, I want to try a bit with the Brussels sprouts. Wow. By the way, I also have this cool thing that I talked about last time. I keep this with me everywhere I go. In the kitchen anyway. I'm not just walking around with fried garlic. But it is so good for texture. I did put garlic in the boiling stock, like I said. So you might not need too much of that. But it does add great texture and flavor. By the way, my gorgonzola polenta and my jerk meatballs are on my Chef in Place interim menu, available for delivery or curbside pickup if you are in the Bay Area. So just wanted to shout that out. You can drop me a line after this tutorial and let me know if you'd like to order, and I'll send you the menu. But otherwise, just thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and support. Really am coming to love doing these cooking tutorials, despite how nervous I often seem. But this is a really cool kind of outlet for me to continue being able to do what I love, which is cook and like explore new ingredients. And so to do that with an audience that's interested in it is really, really cool. So thank you again. This is Chef Alexis Butters, aka Chef Christina, signing off. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and feel free to stay in touch. Take care, everyone. Bye.